Okay, hello, everyone. Thank you. I see we've got a few people. Tucker, I see Tom and Amy online. Thanks for joining virtually. And Maria? Oh, Bob is on. Good. Okay,
Oh, is
that was
he?
my question.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
so why don't we do this? Just call the roll. Judy, let's see who's really here.
All right, Neil Butnick,
Here.
Judy Neville, Tom Schulte on, Amy Carroll,
Here.
Todd Lavieri,
Here.
Michael Chin, we have not heard from yet. Okay. Chris Labrie,
Here.
Victor Alvarez.
Here.
Maria Weingarten is on, Robert Hamill is on.
Here. Hey, Bob.
Colin Dalbert.
Here.
And our first selectman, Kevin Monahan. So we need to seat Maria for Michael Chin, a motion.
Okay, motion. Move. Neil, second.
Second.
Chris, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, none? Okay. Okay, and a motion to approve the minutes, please, from March 8th.
So moved.
Victor, second.
Second.
Thanks, Chris. All in favor, approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay. Okay. So we've got a few things to cover tonight. We'll start with the selectmen's update, and then Bob and Lisa, I asked, as you all may remember, for an update on the library, really two things. One was the status of the line of credit working capital, and we'll get an update on that, and then just the overall project update. Those are really the purpose of the update for that. And then, of course, we've got the ARPA requests in front of us, two recommendations, I believe, that have been vetted. So we'll go through those. Tiger, we've got a sewer fee review, and we'll hear your update there. Josh and hey, Lisa, we've got an update on the financials, so we'd like to just get a status as to where we are. We will have a discussion on the mill rate, and Ann will come up and talk to us about that. And go through what things look like. We are not approving it tonight. We will approve it in May, but just to get all of our either questions out there or any analysis that we need to have, and then we'll wrap up with a couple of line item transfers. So with that, Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I don't have much, but I'll run down our normal roster here. COVID, I can't talk about COVID, or you get your weekly email now from Jen Allison, our health director, telling us about our weekly Monday, Wednesday, Friday PCR testing, which we continue. Some demand in advance of this vacation week with the schools, and there was a downtick in the number of cases, so it's kind of the same as goes. We're doing the booster clinics, boostering over at Waveney Care Center, and doing everyone who's eligible. The new fourth booster over the age of 50 or the immunocompromised. And then finally, there's a brand new program, which you probably read about, called Test and Treat, which if you test at certain centers, and the closest ones to New Canaan are in Norwalk, Field and Riverside, Connecticut. They give you the pills that are available, Pfizer. And so, but there's nothing in Stamford, nothing in New Canaan as far as, but you can find those locations close by. Capital projects, Tiger promised me as soon as the asphalt plants open, we're going to start repaving like crazy downtown, or at least over the next several weeks and months. With one exception, we met with Eversource again a week, 10 days ago, and they're promising us they're going to start the expansion down Elm, Pine, and Grove Street. And as part of that expansion, they will come into Waveney Park for Lapham Center, and ultimately, hopefully for the pool and the paddle tennis courts. CHP is arriving tomorrow in this building, the equipment, so that's progressing in Town Hall. They've gotten very good, relatively good bids on solar for the high school. And as a reminder, we're going to put solar panels on the accessory gym, or what do they call it, building, so we can power the lights at Dunning, which will be new soon under the new budget as well. And then I've been working a lot on the playoffs plan, which you will see on the 27th, is it? The special meeting on the 27th? 25th? Joint meeting of the town council and the Board of Finance. And then Bonus Ridge Cell Tower, I'm told, was filed last Friday with the Connecticut Siting Council. So that's moving forward. We will have other news about cell towers soon. Keep on saying that soon, but they are in the works. And the PD renovation, we KBA, Castle Blues Associates, is been retained to deliver a alternative plan for knocking off the back half of the police department and rebuilding as new that portion of the building. We'll have that by May 1st, thereabouts. And
Progress.
unfortunately, our pricing estimator retired, so we have to get another pricing estimator for both plans anyway. So that's in the works. We're working on the swing space plan for the PD renovation.
Hang on one second. Lisa, you need to
Just
go
a
down on
second,
mute.
Are we on here?
This is Lisa's computer.
Oh.
Is it on mute? Okay.
So, and also we're working on the training range study, both the West Cog and an alternative possibly in the Canaan. And then finally, we're planning to release tomorrow the draft affordable housing plan, which is due by June 1st under 830J. And that's been the work of a committee that I serve on with P&Z members and others. So that's about all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, what was the training range you just referred to?
Well, we're, as I've said before, West Cog has been studying a regional training range. And surprisingly, there's a lot more interest in a regional
Please.
range,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
a regional range.
Oh, there is interest in it.
Yeah, actually, there's 10 departments that are interested, in it, including even Darien, which is interested in rifle practice facility. Unfortunately, we're beginning to lose more of the time we have, all the departments have at Worcester Mountain, which is a state facility, state property, private range, but they're beginning to take away Thursdays. So we really have to be moving toward a plan to have available training space. And we possibly would build one here if we had another partner or two, but that's being studied.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll invite Lisa and Bob, are you coming up too? Just Lisa. On your own. Okay.
At the podium or?
Yes,
here?
well, I think it's easier to present here. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and just make sure you've got the mic kind of close to you.
Still not working.
Thank you all. So I've got a terrible cold.
So just stay close to the mic for several reasons.
But,
Okay, that's okay.
I don't want to jeopardize everybody else, but it is easier. if I
No,
just
it's totally
take
fine.
this off.
Absolutely fine.
It's
So let me just
fine.
remind everybody what our agenda is tonight. So as you all recall, back in the fall, there was a question as to whether or not we needed to provide a line of credit, and if so, how much, back in September, October, as the library program was getting, a project was getting rolling. So what we had said was, let's roll the year over and get into the budget, and then let's touch base. And this is where we are now to get an update on two things. One, the overall project, the status, and how is it going? It's a major capital project for the town, obviously, and we're very seriously invested in it. And then the second was just on the line of credit. The original thinking was something like 10 million as a ballpark figure at one point in terms of what would be needed. So the question for us to understand now is what you're thinking on the 10 million. When would it be needed? And if it's not 10, what might it be, and all that kind of stuff. And then what we'd like to do ultimately coming out of this meeting is understand when should we get that vehicle in place, if at all, so that it's ready if needed. And obviously that's not today, but at some point we would want to have that conversation. So those two things, update on the project and your thoughts on the line of credit.
Terrific. I'll get started. Thank you for inviting me back. I'm delighted to present an update on the project. You are obviously our biggest single investor, and so it's very exciting to be able to share all the progress. I might be able to show you, let me just see here, this is what happened today. Let's see if I can share this.
It's dangerous to do it real time.
Yeah, I
You're
know,
in
but
high wire
I'm
act
going
here.
to give it a go.
There are thousands of people watching,
Thousands of people watching.
maybe 6.
It's more than normal.
Okay, so today we had the beam. Can you see that?
I do,
Yep,
yes.
So that happened at 1 o'clock this afternoon. The beam was lifted into place with the crane. That's the last beam That's the last of the steel. And so I'll get into a little bit of, what next in my presentation, but this was live action. In fact, our site cam
Kidding.
couldn't even, it doesn't digest everything until tomorrow, so I couldn't add it to the time lapse, which I'll show you later, because it was so fresh. But somebody did capture it on a camera from the rooftop, and we had that. So I thought I'd share that with you.
That's great.
Super exciting.
What you can do.
And now we'll get into. Okay, so So project update. As you know, we started in. Stop sharing? Okay.
Go to slideshow.
Okay. So as you know, we started in November finally, and with site work, and the project's been moving full steam ahead ever since. Just to go back in time just a little bit and give you a bit of a timeline how we got to today. 2012, it all started with community groups coming in and lots of consultation. 2017, we secured the final of multiple properties. 2018, we started the campaign. All through 2019, we worked to raise money. We hit the 16 million mark, and that was the trigger for which you all invited us in January of 2020 to come and share the project with the rest, with the full community. As we all know, 30 days later, the pandemic shut everything down and really slowed momentum. And you'll remember in those first 6, 8, 10 months, people were dying, and it did not feel right to be carrying on with the really accelerated pace of fundraising that we were doing. Things started to look better. We got vaccines, et cetera, et cetera. And finally, we went through all of 2021 with the P&Z process. That was about 7 months, or maybe 100 years. I'm not sure, depending on your perspective. And finally, at the end of 2021, we started work. All of this year, 2022, we will be in construction, and our move-in date at the moment is January, month of January, and we should be open to the public on February 1st, 2023 in the new building.
January 23rd?
February
I mean, I'm just.
February 1st,
Okay,
2023. I don't
what I
know
thought
how
you
many
meant.
people are gonna
10 months.
have a go at me for making that public
Well, it's
tonight,
out there
but
now.
No,
that is
that's
that
fine.
is the that is the projected date. Construction is ahead of schedule. Things are going well. We have amazing partners in both Centerbrook and Turner. And working with really high quality, talented people really makes a difference on a project. And they work really well together. Problems get solved very constructively, and we keep moving forward. So this is the image that we shared back in December with our planning and zoning. We shared a couple of different options at their request to come and share how we might preserve the legacy building. And this was the one that the P&Z chose. This is a 1,200 square foot building that remains on the site, and also preserves the green. So it was seen widely as win-win-win. So that's the image there. This is 10 days ago. So this is how fast this project is moving, because you'll see a time lapse in a moment. 10 days ago, we had this bulk of the building that is along South and Maple. The steel was all up, 3 levels there, the main floor, the mezzanine, and the second floor. The roof was on, the steel decking is on, but everything that's over that's in the center and towards Main Street, you can see concrete. You can see the basement under the auditorium there, but no steel was erected. That was only 10 days ago. I hope you will enjoy this. This starts around end of December, maybe around the end of December. There was music. Oh. So you can see the first scaffolding going up there. You see the lift shaft being built. Crane comes for the first time, starts erecting the steel. See the roof going on there at the back. So the crane is left.
Being there every other day.
Cranes come back. There we go. Anyway, so
Nice, very good.
stop short, but
You do a future forecast?
what's that?
Future forecast?
She
Future
showed that
forecast
picture in the
is
beginning. That was the
coming
end.
right
That was
up.
the end.
Coming right up. So today was a very exciting day. The final and highest beam was placed. That was what I showed you earlier. All of the steel is now erected on the site. This week, a lot is happening. So the concrete's coming back, I think tomorrow. The upper floors are all decked, all the stainless, the steel decking is all on the mezzanine and upper floors, and they're pouring concrete on those upper levels this week. The foundations are already 100% complete. That was completed last week, and exterior wall is already started. Coming up over the course of summer, we'll get the exterior wall installed. The building will be made weather tight. All the permanent power will be installed and the elevator will be installed. It's moving really fast. This building is largely going to be complete by New Year. So on to the
Before
other.
you go to fundraising, couple questions on the building. When did we order the steel? Bob, or you remember?
We ordered it last April, the end of April.
Okay.
We ordered it ahead of,
I know. Just wondering how much, do you have any guess what we saved by getting that order in April versus like November or December?
That's a-
substantial amount of money,
Yeah.
$250,000.
I think
Easily.
it's really hard to say. It's probably a lot more than that, because the challenge would have been, had we waited,
Getting it.
that we wouldn't have had
You
it,
wouldn't get,
Yeah,
you wouldn't get
which
it. No
means we
question.
might not have
That's right.
started yet.
That's right. That's right. That's
So
right.
I think we can talk about what we saved in dollars, which probably is absolutely true. And that was, congratulations to our Board of Trustees, who made a very, very difficult decision with a lot of, without all the information they needed. And they made a very brave decision to order that steel while we were still
Mhm.
in the planning and zoning process. So I think congratulations, and a lot of money saved for the whole project because
that's
of
right.
that decision making.
And faith in the process.
And faith in the process, yes.
That's good. Okay, good.
Hey, Lisa and Tom, and all, I'm out in Colorado this week talking to a bunch of people who are doing a lot of construction out here, and the construction people are saying that they are held up by 42 weeks for steel right now.
Well, multiply that times what's
we
today's
sell?
inflation rate, 8.6. I can't even imagine how much money we
Are you
saved.
suggesting we sell our steel at a profit and start all over again next year? What are you telling me?
Like the building.
Oh, that's amazing, Amy. Thanks.
Wow.
That's incredible. Yeah, so had we started in September, we would have
Yeah,
made more
forget it.
savings, but we are where we are. So fundraising, things continue to go really well. We are over 33 million. We've got a little less than 7 million still to raise. That's going well. Every day every week, Ellen and I are meeting with donors from all across the community. We're still having very fruitful conversations with people who are in the leadership level. We're having conversations with people at every level. The community is very, very excited about this project and are really getting involved. So we're very optimistic of closing that last gray piece of the pie. Our goal is to get it done this year. That's what we're aiming for.
Okay.
That gets to your question
Yep.
about line of credit.
Yep.
I think it was more than 10 in the end. What was written into the contract, 11, I think.
13.
13, there we go.
13,
1/3.
I rounded down,
But at the moment, we've got less than 7 to raise.
right?
So if I drop dead on the way home and
Lisa.
Ellen doesn't come back from vacation, that's your max.
That is one way to put it.
That's sorted,
Le-
but that's all. We get it.
What about the timing now? So let's say you get everything raised, there's still a lag on the flow of the funds.
There sure is. We think that if the earliest we will need something is October or November.
Okay,
And based on, how things are going, that number will be something south of 6.
6.
But
Okay, so if I were to summarize what you said, you're on schedule or ahead of schedule. Steel's in the door
steel's all up.
and all up. The 10 to $13 million range for line of credits off the table. At worst case, we're looking at maybe 6 to 7. But you wouldn't need anything till October.
Earliest.
October, okay.
So
Oh, go ahead,
Tom,
Bob.
Just for the numbers itself, the project's about 30% completed now. We've spent roughly $10 million
Okay.
to date.
Okay,
We will draw down the remaining part of the town's commitment next month.
and how much was drawn down already?
5-7.
5-7
5-7 roughly.
out the door. Okay, pull down.
The
Okay.
remaining 4-3
Okay,
next month.
okay,
The
Okay.
project will then start burning through roughly $1.5 million to $2 million a month throughout the summer.
mhm,
So under the assumption that the revenues come in at the same pace as we projected,
mhm.
then October would be the most likely time we
Okay.
would need to draw down money.
Okay.
Hopefully
Okay.
it's better than that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
so the project's overall cost, hard costs is roughly 30 million, a little over 30 million. And then the remainder is soft costs, architecture, and everything else
mhm.
that goes with it.
Will you be, is that on budget?
So on budget, a little bit above, we've had some escalations, obviously, because of what's going on in commodities
Okay,
and some
Within the
change orders, but we,
within the contingency amount though?
within the
Okay,
contingency,
all right,
and there's savings offsetting it.
Okay.
So there's still a lot to be determined going forward, but we're
Wow.
pretty comfortable
Nice job.
that, everything is on pace on a dollars and cents basis.
just back to the line of credit then. So
Yeah.
just, you said November, let's just say October. Just, we want to have something in place well before, no?
I said October.
You
so
said
let's say
October. I
September.
thought you said November. I thought Lisa said November. Okay, so November, October, we'll assume October. And just a suggestion then for this group is for us to know what you need in the June, July timeframe so that we could move on something with room to spare for a line of credit. We'll know the amount, right? And the timing way better, right?
Right.
That work? Okay, if that works for us, we don't need to vote on anything tonight, but just to understand where you are, I think
We'll
that
give you a
sounds,
continuous update
Yeah.
along the way.
yeah, okay, all right.
Fair.
Amy and Tom and Bob, does that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if
Absolutely.
the target is for an October thing, we should have everything buttoned up by late summer, Labor Day, so that it's there and available, when and as needed. That seems about right.
Okay, okay, you okay with that?
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to have the line in place in advance of the
Totally.
first, by
Yeah.
at least a month.
This is good.
So September, I think, is the proper
Okay.
date to think for closing of the. line of
Just
credit.
one more number, we have 9 million in cash in the bank today, so that's where we stand.
Okay, okay.
Cash flow standpoint.
okay, okay.
So more on fundraising, in addition to the conversations we're having with people all over town who are still naming rooms and things like that. We also have an initiative right now, which is sort of like another project's buy a brick. For us, it's buy a chair. This is proving to be extraordinarily popular. Members of the community can invest in the project and get their name or their family name on one of the chairs that'll be in the auditorium. This has been a runaway success and is going really well. Andrew Armstrong, who I think most everybody knows, is local New Canaanite who is got the New Canaan Chamber Music Orchestra, and he was one of the people that volunteered to be a poster child for this project. It's been extraordinarily successful. We've paused that, not paused it. We're just working on getting our annual funding at the moment, and so we haven't been promoting this as much this month, but we'll be back on next month. And then another initiative, sort of these are campaigns within a campaign, is supporting the Children's Wall. And this is an opportunity for 50 families to get involved and support the Children's Library particularly. And the resulting donor wall, rather than a bunch of names, is this art installation, which will be butterflies, insects, pollinators, birds, all native to New Canaan. We're working with the Nature Center and the Land Trust to make sure that all of the icons, the images, are all local fauna. And so this is also proving to be extremely popular with our young families. Excuse me. And so that's pretty much it for my update on the current project.
So what are your concerns? I mean, the steel is up, that's great. It's in the door, it's up, that's great. Money's coming in. You've had the support. What holds you back? What are the issues? What are the
So
big
we're
open switches?
full steam ahead on all of this, and we've got a clear run through the end of the year with the main building project. As everybody knows, we went back to planning and zoning in December, and they approved this as the way to preserve the legacy part of the building. This was what the Planning and Zoning Commission chose. It's a 1,200 square foot building. It's the front two rooms of the original building on site, also allowing the green. In order to make that happen, when we finish the main building, 1A, the original plan would have had us go straight into 1B, demolition of the remainder of the demolition of the existing building, and building the outdoor structures in the green. But through the process of P&Z and the community input, we are going to insert the legacy building project. To make this all work, this gets inserted between 1A and 1B. As you know, just like last year, to get to the starting date with our project, there was a year and a half of work that went before we even showed up at P&Z. That work involved architects, engineers, builders, lawyers, planners. A lot goes in to bringing a project to the P&Z. In order for us to start this legacy project on February 1st, which is the projected date that we'll be out of the existing library, work needs to start now in order to make this happen and make sure everything is in place so that we can dovetail the insertion of the legacy project and then move on to 1B, which is demolition of the existing library and the construction of the green. Everything is all in place. We're ready to go. We still don't know where the money is coming for this separate project.
And how much money is this now?
That is a $2.5 million project.
Okay, so it's $2.5 million for the legacy building to fit into your plan and schedule according to what P&Z was looking for. Okay, got it.
So that starts with, so we've got a concept, which is the drawing I just showed.
Mhm.
We've got to get architectural plans that are at a much more detailed level to show all the bits, how that's going to work. We need to do quite a lot of work. Our site plan obviously has to change to accommodate for this structure being included. That wasn't in the site plan as presented. So lots of people need to get involved, and obviously engineers and structural engineers to make sure that we can make sure that this building is got structural integrity to do whatever we need to shore it up, to make sure it's absolutely in perfect condition and move it on to its new foundation. It needs new foundations. And so for all of that to happen, all that documentation needs to be prepared so that the planner and lawyer that will prepare the application for P and Z have everything they need to make that application to P and Z, hopefully in June.
So you need that to happen in that time frame to hit the February date to not get in the way of the new building either.
That's
Correct?
exactly
That's
right.
all comes together. All right.
It's all come together.
Okay.
that's
So
right.
you need how much money when?
So
You don't need 2.5 million today.
no,
But-
but we will need 1.5 million to get us to that February timeframe to
Oh.
make sure everything moves smoothly.
So you need 1.5 million between now. You need 1.5 million committed this year to fund that. So that doesn't get in the way of the construction of the new or the opening of the new building.
So the new building.
What's the
will-
other million for then? If you need 1.5 million to get you to February, what's the other million for?
And then that will be to actually, once it's secure on its new foundations, structurally secure, everything is done, it's ready.
Mhm.
It's now not a viable building because it's had its guts ripped out of
Right,
it
of
because
course.
all of the abatements had to
Okay,
happen,
Okay.
the floor and everything else. So then it needs to be turned back
Okay.
into a viable building
Okay.
with, heating, plumbing, all of the relevant things. And obviously, we want to do a really good job with this and make sure that it was so very important that we keep it. It must be done properly. So it can be done in these 2 steps, get
Mhm.
it secured, goal number 1. And then once we finish with the green, we'll continue raising money. We'll need to continue raising money because I don't expect that last million or so is going to come. Well, maybe we'll be really lucky and it'll come in really fast. But we need to allow for time for fundraising for that. We'll be able to finish that project
Okay.
off.
So you need $1.5 million this year.
We do.
And how were you going to get that?
That is
That's the
a
question.
good question.
question.
A really good question. So as our primary investors, our biggest investor, you will appreciate that I am fully focused on fundraising the last 6.5 million
Sure.
for the main project. This can't wait for me to finish that job. So we need a source of funding immediately. I think one of the things that's maybe not obvious is we will move into the new building. That's for sure. That's all going to happen. The new building will open, we'll move in. That's not a problem. The challenge will be if we're not ready, if we don't start this process right now, when we get to February 1st, if we don't have all of the relevant approvals, permissions, et cetera, we will have 2 libraries sitting on that site. This is the drone view that I showed you earlier. You can see how these 2 buildings fit on the site. In the top right corner, you've got the existing library. In the lower left corner, you've got the new building. At the moment, what we have approval for does not contemplate how we will preserve the legacy building. For that, we must go back to P&Z and get all the relevant approvals. If we don't have that, once we've done the punch list, we've moved in, we've opened the doors to the public, we don't have a way forward if we haven't gone through this process of getting
Okay,
to
well,
P&Z.
the issue will be then this board can't create an appropriation. We need someone to ask for money. And so we'll need something coming from the Board of Selectmen, or you can ask, we can put that request, in, but there's got to be a vehicle for getting that ball rolling. And so, and then just to play it out a little bit, if we're going to create an appropriate, if the Selectmen office is going to recommend $1.5 million, and I don't know how that's all going to work out, by the way. We'll have to figure out whether there's going to be some private funding that makes up the other million over time or whatever. Those all need to be, that all needs to be worked out. But assuming that the ask may be $1 million or $1.5 million that the town funds, we need an appropriation request. We'll need to process it. And then, the taxpayers will have a bite at that. That may be something they want to have a point of view on as to whether or not there are people that are very supportive of preserving the legacy building, and there are people that aren't. We have to recognize that in this town. And so we'll have to sort out how that all unfolds. Okay. But we'll need a request. We'll absolutely need a request for that. And it probably needs to happen by our May meeting, if that was what I'm hearing you.
I think there's a cautionary tale here, and that is when the P and Z board decided to place a condition on the permission granting the new library project, they essentially were driving up the cost by $2.5 million by saying in order for us to approve this, you have to move the old building. And from my point of view, the people that were in support of preserving the old building were a special interest. They weren't the majority of the town. And so going forward, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that these very vocal, very well-organized people can come in and have strong opinions about projects that are going on in the town, but they could ultimately lead to very significant cost overrun. So we should be.
Well, this
wary of that.
process would then, actually, to your point, Victor, it will have a process. We'll have to have an appropriation. We could move it, and 800 people can sign a petition to say we don't want to spend that money, and then there could be a referendum, and it might not happen. And then if it doesn't happen and the taxpayers don't want it, then then there won't be a legacy building. So that's how things work, right? So to your point, I mean, this would be how it will unfold, whether we like it or not. We have to get an appropriation, and people can referendum an appropriation that we make. And so the taxpayers might want to have a point of view on what you just said.
I didn't know if Amy was putting her hand up. I don't know. if
Oh,
that-
Amy's, I'm sorry. Yeah, Amy, sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just wondering, Lisa, do you have I don't mean in excruciating detail, but do you have kind of a high level breakout of the potential expenses related with moving this building, just so people can understand where the costs come in? Because, I mean, we know construction costs are going through the roof, but the numbers on this keep going up and up and up. I'd just be curious how much of it is actually disassembling, moving the building. I think it might be helpful for people to understand where these potential costs are.
Yeah, so great question, Amy. The numbers haven't gone up. I think this 2.5 million is pretty much what the library has always said it would cost for this.
Okay.
But it's a very good question. It's a 1,200 square foot building. So
Yeah, this is $2,000 a square foot, if I'm correct, roughly.
yeah, it's less expensive. We had estimators cost out the alternate proposal that was presented by other people, and that was even more. So, yes, it's a lot of money, but this is where we are, and this is what we've got. So so one of the big things is selective demolition. So we talked about this last year, the difference between a wrecking ball, right, and men with chisels to separate one part of a building from the other. So there's a big increase there's a big number, right, is figuring out how to separate this front building from the rest. Then you've got all the abatement, which happens at a very high level. You're going to expose a lot of hazardous materials, right? So they all have to be abated at a level that satisfies the health department. So that's a cost that differs from if things were being abated to go to landfill. So there are things like that. Then there's obviously, you're not just moving a shell to sit there as an empty shell. It needs to be developed into a proper building that can be functional for a purpose. So that clearly means relining it, insulating it, bringing in heating, plumbing, all the things to make it a viable functional building. Of all of these, in case there's lying inside this question, the cost of actually moving it is $350,000.
Okay, well, we don't need to solve we need a number. You need a number to propose, and somehow it has to come to.
So
I mean, the way the
also-
charter works is for any facility in this town that's town funded or supported, it really, I believe any of the recommendations have to come to us, and then from the selectman's office.
So Lisa, does the library have any plans for what it would do with this 1,200 square foot building?
So that's an excellent question.
Yeah.
I think the best answer I can give for that is this wasn't a part of our original plan, but it's what we've got now. It's a beautiful looking compromise, and it will be When it's secured, that's our main goal right now. Secure it, preserve it, make it safe. Move into the new building, and then thoughtfully, carefully work out what the correct use of this space is. And I think it's really important that we don't just manufacture a use because we've suddenly got a building,
Yeah.
but rather we think very thoughtfully about what is the best use for this building. And I think there's no particular reason to rush that. The main goal here is preserve it and make it safe so that once we've got through finishing this other building, getting everything else done, we can think about what are the most appropriate uses that make the most of this new structure that we'll have.
Thank you.
One more question. So does that mean it's a shell? The building is a shell? Is it fitted out with ADA? Is it fitted out with bathrooms? Or is this just to move the existing building carefully? And then we have a building that is not fitted out internally?
So I'll break that into two pieces. For $1.5 million, we will get a shell sitting on a new foundation, safe and secure.
Okay.
And then the remaining $1 million will allow us to fit it out into a well-appointed, with all the bathrooms, with insulation, with heating, plumbing, cooling. That all happens in the part 2 of this.
I guess, Lisa, one
$2.5 million
question would be,
is
do you know whether or not decisions around its use would drive this number? In other words, every project has unknowables, right? And just wondering how confident is the 2.5 that we get a finished project that can actually address the use if we haven't actually defined what that use is?
It's a 1,200 square foot space
Yeah.
in a 65 by 20 block, sitting in the center of town on library property, which has been deemed by the zoning regs, everything on that property must be library business. So I don't know how wildly variable those uses could be. I don't know how better to answer that. I mean, in the abstract, it's an abstract question at this stage. And it's why I think we shouldn't rush into trying to assign a use when we don't know what the need will be at this point.
Right. There's just been, understandably, of course, but there's been a lot of, well, there's permits and there's process and there's this and that. I just be helpful, I think, for us to understand, without getting into the specific number in the specific appropriation, which is for a later date, but just now, the 2.5 is a relatively confident number with that your understanding of the site and the work and whatnot. Most of the unknowables have kind of been looked at and addressed. And so there's a high level of confidence in that number that it's not going to keep moving around.
So, yeah, but remember, when you move, at the moment, we've got a concept plan. The good news is we know what the building is. So it's not like a concept plan when you've got a green field. So we've got a concept plan. We need to move to schematics, design development. Every time you do the next level of detail in a project, you're able to more accurately pinpoint. And this is some of what we talked about throughout last year. As the architects work to develop more and more detail around a project, the numbers the estimators hand back become more and more accurate, right? So at this point, we're at concept, but it is a much more known unknown, say, than the original library building, which when it was at concept, we had a shape and a size. And then as it got further developed, we were able to really hone in on what the actual cost would be. And that's the same with every architectural project, right? You start with a concept, you get a rough order of magnitude. The more details you get, the more confident you can be in your numbers. We're at the concept scale, but we know what the building looks like because we've got it there. So
Maybe this is unfair, but maybe what I'm hearing is we need $1.5 million so that we can complete the project, not the legacy building, but the project. And then there's $1 million that would outfit it and whatever. And there may be, as the camera rolls on here for the rest of the year, maybe clarity comes to what else needs to be
That
done.
is exactly right.
I get that. Okay. Well, go ahead, Bob.
The key thing is that first 1.5 million, more than half of it is structural engineering and design soft costs. So we need that before, you know, commit to
Yeah.
that almost immediately.
Yeah, okay.
in order to move
Well,
on.
like I said, we will need a request. The request has to come to us. We'll process it as fast as we can. We could have a special meeting if you can get it done that quickly. If not, we'll do it. We'll definitely have a conversation in May. And if we know another special meeting in May, we could do it just to move it. We won't be the holdup per se, but that's how this has to happen. Okay, well, it's a great overview. I don't know if there are other questions or not. Neil, anything else? I mean, we've got a good story, project's doing well, funding's doing very well. Line of credit's much lower than we were anticipating 8 months ago, 6 months ago. But we've got to resolve this open issue. Got it. Okay.
It's all good. I think a sense of immediacy on that legacy project, though, in terms of all of us moving along in the process
Mhm.
is important, because if you add them chronologically, just a week here, 30 days here, and this and that, time runs out. And time-
That's a super important point, Neil, because if we get, so when we get so the goal here is we get to January, we've got our permissions, we've got our approval from planning and zoning, we've got any relevant permissions that we need, and we're ready to go. The first thing that should happen, as soon as we can vacate the building, get all the books moved from
Mhm.
one building to the next, the hazardous materials engineers, they come in. That's the first thing that happens. And they start doing abatement. And then the next thing that happens is the demolition starts. And then that's obviously a very different demolition than what we had originally proposed, because we've got this surgical demolition. If we don't have all of these approvals and permits from P&Z by the end of January, if the construction teams, Turner Construction and all of their subs, can't move directly into abatement demolition, all of the other subs that are all lined up,
They all go away. yeah.
they leave,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
They don't
right.
stick around
Project stops,
waiting
sure,
when they're not getting
sure,
paid.
sure.
And if
That's a good
that
point.
happens,
Yep.
Turner leave.
Yep.
Because they don't sit around not getting paid.
Yep.
That's obviously just how it is.
Mhm.
So if we don't start now, every week from last week that we miss the end of January deadline, we risk a complete cessation of activity, and we end up with the 2 library solution.
Got it, but we need an appropriation request.
Just
We can-
responding to Neil's question.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer, but I do get it, but we
Yeah, just a couple of observations. So Neil and I represent the Board of Finance on the building committee. There's 2 very active members from town council on there as well. And so we've been participating in this since the fall. So this board and all other boards need to know that the building committee process is an extremely buttoned up process. Everything has gone over in great detail. And when the library reports back on the status of things, or they report back on the future timeline, they've really have studied this and they know of what they're talking about. So when Lisa says we need to do this, the time is of the essence. It's not hyperbole.
Mhm. Okay.
It really is essential that this piece be addressed and decided upon now. In fact, now is probably even a little late, because it would have been good to do a couple of 3 weeks ago, but we are where we are. The risks that have been pointed out about the discontinuity of the construction is a very real risk.
Sure.
And that's probably the most critical risk, because if you have that disconnect, then the reconnection is going to be very, very difficult. And then and then in the end, when we look at the money that will probably be asked of the town, think of it half and half. Half of it is to secure that building and move it to the other end of the construction site, secure it, and then allow the rest of the project, which was the lawn, to be completed. What goes on inside the building is a phase 2.
Right.
And can take
That's right.
much more time.
Non-urgent.
It doesn't
That's right.
have to be done in that critical first phase to allow the work jump on February 1st and to permit then the completion of the lawn at the end. So,
Okay.
I think the town is on the cusp of probably having the most beautiful library campus in the United States. And, it would be great if we can see it to its completion.
Excellent. Okay. Any other questions, Amy or Tom, Bob? Good for now?
Good.
Colin, Neil, we're good?
Good.
Chris, you good? Good, Victor? Okay, all right. Great update. Thank you. I
Thank
hope you
you.
feel better.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in to do this. It was a great update. We really needed it. It was
And-
perfect.
It's
Thank you so much for
dragging
inviting us.
everybody. Yeah.
Okay, ARPA. Amy, is this you?
Oh, I didn't put up the screen, but no, but I was with the town council subcommittee reviewing these two ARPA events or requests.
Okay, so just the status of this is the Board of Selectmen recommendation and the ARPA committees also agrees. These are the next two things we want to fund.
Yes, I can't see if anybody if Russ is there, if anybody from Silver Hill is there, or if people had the chance to watch the presentation given to the selectmen that Tucker sent out the
Yeah. Do you
information on.
Yeah, Chairman, it's Russ Barksdale. I'm here virtually.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
we can do this. Fine.
Since Dr. Gerber's been here and why don't we go with that?
Absolutely. No, prefer to have you here. Sure. If you could present, is it all set up or do you need Tucker to? You do need to go there only for the microphone for everybody, if you don't mind. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Shall I talk for a few minutes about it? So
Yes.
first of all, I wanted to apologize to the subcommittee for not being there on the call. I was speaking that night at a gathering in town, and I had to balance these two things and decided to honor that commitment. But I want to thank Tucker and Bethany and everybody who was on that call. I listened to it, and people did a beautiful job.
Well, you chose well because it's here to get approved. So.
Exactly. I know. I did a little bit of gamble there, but it seemed to go well, and I got to see some nice people at dinner that night.
Excellent.
So it's a privilege to be here. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm Andrew Gerber. I'm the President Medical Director at Silver Hill Hospital. And this is a project that is very near and dear to my heart, to the hearts of, I think, everybody at Silver Hill. We've been on Valley Road for 90 years, and we have a long history of being active members of the community. We had the site of the first community mental health clinic in Fairfield County on our campus, and we've always taken a lot of pride in providing care, confidential, of course, to town members and to being available. We've had a string of medical directors, my predecessors who were very involved with the police, with the town, working with human services, with Bethany and other members of the town. And it's a real honor to get to do that. The reality of mental health right now, and I probably am stating the obvious to all of you here, is that we're in a crisis like we haven't seen in anybody's memory. Mental health has worsened. If we can go to the next slide, actually 2 more slides. Yeah, one more ahead. Yeah, and I know this is a bit of an eye chart, but just to say that the mental health system in our country in general has been overwhelmed for a number of years, even before COVID. The common number that people talk about is 1 in 5 adults are diagnosable with a psychiatric disorder in any given year. But I always think that gives a false impression that the other 4 are just fine.
Yeah.
And in fact, what we know from our families is that we all know people who are affected, and some of them more mildly, some of them moderate, some of them quite severely. And the toll that takes on our families, on our workplaces, on our schools is tremendous. On top of that, you then have COVID. And if you go to the next slide, and again, I'll just sort of summarize this for you. Between 2019 and 2021, we saw a 4-fold increase in the number of households that were reporting adults with symptoms of anxiety and depressive disorder, from 11% up to 41%. In kids, and I shouldn't say kids, but I'm showing my age, in young adults between the ages of 18 to 24, we've seen that number pass 50%. Those are who are describing symptoms of anxiety and depression during the COVID pandemic. In frontline essential healthcare workers, we see again that number pretty close to 50%, those who are reporting symptoms of anxiety and depression. So we've got a full-scale public health crisis around this. And if we go to the next slide, there's this funny dilemma, which is, many people say, you could all say to me, but wait, aren't we in this remarkably well-resourced town in a remarkably well-resourced areas? We all know psychiatrists, therapists, towns got them, and that's all true. But you've got this system that is not anybody's fault here, but has evolved in this country over the years, where the system is fragmented, it's confusing, and regardless of one's resources or demographics, the points of entry into the system are incredibly hard to find. And in the discussion in the subcommittee, I thought it was a wonderful conversation about exactly this. People don't know where to start. And I'm not talking about people who have trouble with most things, people who have resources and people to call. They don't know where to start. And I love this picture from the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner where they say, water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. That's what it feels like. We know therapists, but we don't know how to get somebody who's in a crisis into the service they need in a timely fashion. And so what happens over and over again is somebody says, yeah, my son, my daughter, my spouse, my parent was in a crisis, but we didn't know what to do. We didn't want to go to the emergency room because frankly, going into Norwalk Hospital or Greenwich Hospital, even a beautiful hospital, is not a recipe for anybody to feel better. If you've got a mental health crisis, right? If you have to go there for a medical reason, or if you're in an acute medical state, of course, but you wait for hours, if not days. We just admitted an adolescent to our hospital who had been in an emergency room for a week. Can you imagine? You're in this terrible state of mind and you're spending a week in an emergency room. So that's a terrible entry point. But then you call a therapist or psychiatrist, you get told, I've got no openings now. I could see you in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? How many phone calls do you have to make? And then you add on top of all that, even people with good insurance get told, we don't cover that, or you're going to have to pay your deductible, or you're going to have to pay a copay. And when somebody's struggling, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're unsure, do they really want to even talk about things? That's all it takes to discourage people. So out of this conversation arose, and if you go to the next slide, the need for urgent assessments. We've got a lot of the components and the puzzle pieces in place with the Department of Health and Human Services, with our Department of Youth Services, with our schools, with our local therapists, with some of the wonderful partners that we have here in town, but we don't have a way to glue it together. And a way to do that is to build this urgent assessment clinic. The idea would be that anybody in the town could, for free, get an assessment within 48 hours. It means they could call that very day. We would staff that 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then within 48 hours, ideally 24, we would have them in person having a comprehensive assessment that would then make sure they get plugged into the system where they need to be plugged into. I wish I could say that there was an immediate revenue model that would just make this free without anything. It should be, you could argue, our insurance pay for it, and so on, but that's just not the case. The way insurance is constructed, there are so many obstacles in place. So we need a way to launch this thing. And that's really where the idea comes from. Next slide, something. And then if you go to the slide on partners, I just want to sort of say there's a lot of careful work that's been done with Kevin, with members of the town, Health and Human Services, Youth and Family Services, Adult and Senior Services, with Community Foundation to figure out how we're going to fund this after the first couple of years. New Canaan Parent Support Group, Paul Reinhardt, Waveney Life Care, my esteemed colleague Russ, Kids in Crisis, the Lighthouse, Trey Laird. So there's really wonderful people to work on this, and this is a plan that we know at Silver Hill we can make work. We have the staff, we know how to do these things, we have the leadership. And
Dr. Gary,
you
should make the point that this exists in other parts of the country.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. These things do exist. I think ours would be the best because we have all these local resources. But I will say that one of the consultants we worked with, a guy named Blair McLaughlin, who used to be in Connecticut, now in South Carolina, has built programs like this in other towns. and he would be on board to help us build it as well. So I'll stop there. I'm glad to take questions, and as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this project, and I think it would really, be something we could look back on with great pride.
It's also important to note that we hope to have at least one other town partner, hopefully Darien, who's seriously looking at this, possibly Richfield and Wilton, at least with respect to their schools. Because the interesting thing about this, in order to build enough capacity to make the economics work, you have to, in order to have 5 assessment spots available a week. New Canaan probably doesn't need 5 a week, but you also can't plan when you need them. You may need worse, right? So that's why we hope to have a partner to fund this initial 2 years, possibly 2 partners. They have ARPA funds, or we may have a different model with them as to how they're going to pay. But the idea would be that 2 years down the road, this idea actually started with the Community Foundation and working with Paul Reinhardt as to how we could do this. This was pre-COVID, and the idea was to have this funded by donations from at a fund at the Community Foundation. So we'll figure that out as we go. Once the model proves itself, I think funding it won't be the difficulty. We have to, first of all, show that it works, and work with at least 1 or 2 other towns.
So when I went through this, it wasn't clear to me what the 250 bridges the economics on page, whatever that is, 7 or.
Yep, the budget slide.
The budget
next
page.
to last.
So
Yep.
the 250 bridges that for 1 year or for 2 years?
So the 250 is 1 year.
250 1 year,
And
okay.
unless we get another town partner. In which
okay.
case, we can adjust the economics.
Okay.
But at this point, we don't have a written commitment from anybody, although as Kevin says, I think that we're going to get Darien, and I think there's a good shot Wilton will join us too. But we didn't want to wait. We felt this was too
Right.
important and thought, let's move forward and take a leadership role.
And so what if you get a wave of people, it's such a success.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's funny how you measure success in my business, right? Because, success is a lot of people, and that of course means that people need it. We created something that was at the level that we expect. We don't want to lengthen this, obviously, and say you have to wait more than 48 hours. That would be not the purpose. We've got to then bring in the money to do it. I think the other town partners are the first go-to for that. I think the Community Foundation is another. But listen, we're doctors, and we don't turn people away. And if and Silver Hill stands there to provide the service that's needed. So I can promise you, we're never going to turn anybody away from this program. We're going to have to figure out how to make the finances work, but we're committed to this.
Okay.
So this is a virtual.
It starts with a phone call,
Starts with a phone
but
call.
then we want to get people in
Get an
person.
assessment, true
And
assessment.
you're going to hear about telehealth from Russ. Telehealth is fantastic. Sometimes you need to see people in person.
Yeah, no,
and
understand.
for
I just want to
these kinds of
understand. I'm not,
assessments,
yeah, understand.
So, again, I'm trying to understand, the 250 funds 1 year or 2 years?
1 year.
1 year. And so then, let's say we're successful, it gets off the ground, then what happens in year 2 vis-a-vis funding?
Well, if we have another town partner, then we have 2 years perhaps.
Okay.
Clearly, if we have 3. And if we don't have another town partner, we're going to work harder with the Community Foundation to raise the money for the second year. So
And it would sound like you'll know more after the first year. Is
That's
it
the
really
idea.
120,000 or is it really 400? You don't know.
And that's the idea that KPIs and
Understand.
outcome measures, there's a lot of unknowns,
That's
right?
right. That's
And as you say, it's one of the things we can titrate somewhat is how much we publicize. We want to publicize this very broadly because we want people to come out who need the help and
Yeah, it's a
really
brilliant
don't know
idea.
where to go. On the other hand, we don't want to get overwhelmed. So we're going to have to balance that and
I
figure
mean,
that out.
this is a great project
Brilliant idea.
that's
It's
needed,
great.
Oh, it's more than
Right.
needed. It's.
but if it's
Yeah.
successful,
It needs a strategy.
you get a long-term.
Yeah,
And
that's
you
right.
can't take it away after year
No,
2
no,
or 3,
that's
or
right.
even if we have
Yeah.
That's right.
several towns.
We have to
who
find a way.
Eventually run out of seed capital. I mean, it's great to have a non-tax source of money on day one. But we need to be cognizant of the fact that
Sure.
we're opening up a long-term
Could be commitment.
commitment.
Yeah, between fundraising, could be private
Could be
fundraising.
private-
That it doesn't.
if it works though, we need it.
Exactly.
Exactly right. It's well said.
Even if it saves just a few
No,
lives, you need it.
just said it right.
Yeah.
So, listening to your presentation to the Board of Selectmen, I think you had said that you have an opinion from your legal counsel that it's permissible to give it free for New Canaan.
That's right.
Essentially for you to build the insurance for the copay.
Right.
And so that would at least cover, it would provide a disincentive for people from other towns to come in to take advantage of it
the way we were advised you do this is you say, here's the price. There is a list price for these assessments, roughly $1,200. But what we say to them is any difference between what your insurance pays and the full list price is covered by a grant from New Canaan if you live in New Canaan. If you don't, then you've got to pay. So we can't legally turn somebody away from another town who's coming, but then they have to pay the list price. So, you know, you have to be a little careful, right? In some ways that helps subsidize it. So it's, you know, it's not a terrible thing if some come, but if we don't want them to fill up the spots because then it's not available to New Canaan. So we're not going to publicize in other towns, but we can't, we're not legal. We can't legally turn somebody away, but we can charge them full price.
How does adding a town reduce the cost then? It would seem to me that would just add volume.
Increase
Here's the second year. Because the volume we're currently being promised won't, is too much for New Canaan, probably.
I think the question is about economies of scale. So we say, so if we don't know exactly how many people are going to come, but let's say we expect, 3 per week, right? But if I only schedule 3 per week, my psychiatrists are busy, they're very expensive every hour that they're at the hospital, then I can't promise every 48 hours.
Right.
So I have to allot 6 slots a week.
Right.
And if I'm going to fill all 6 slots because I have a larger catchment area, there's an economy of scale there because on average, I'm going to fill all 6 slots. So you have to titrate. We do this all the time. It's sort of like scheduling airlines, but we have to plan the flow in of patients to exactly match the number of slots. And the larger your catchment area, the better you can do that.
What is the process after the assessment?
Great question. So it's very individualized. So that's why we have the 3 hours, because first you got to meet the psychiatrist, you got to meet with the medical professional, then you meet with the social worker. And what the social worker is doing is working very closely with the Department of Health and Human Services and the full set of services, many of which are non-governmental in our region, to match people up appropriately. So what might be right for a 15-year-old coming out of the school who needs an assessment, that they're okay to go back, is entirely different from the 50-year-old man who needs to go and be detoxed from his alcohol, right? Or someone mentioned on the call who has a domestic violence issue. That's a different. So it's very tailored to the individuals. What's fortunate about this is we do have this core group, some of whom work with Bethany, some of whom already work at Silver Hill, who know all those, and they're up to date because they change almost every day. So it will really be a triage referral function and then a check-in afterwards. The phrase was used, I forget where, about a warm handoff, right? You don't want to just give someone a piece of paper saying, call this number, call the number, it's the wrong person, or it's speaking to somebody live that day, making sure they have an appointment to follow up, and then checking with them afterwards to make sure that the referral happened appropriately. That would be all part of that process.
And who's tracking the follow-up?
So our staff would do that.
You're doing that, or?
We would do it in collaboration with Bethany and her staff. I mean, I think we would take responsibility at the point of the assessment, but obviously working very closely with Health and Human Services. They've already got full-time jobs, so I'm not asking them to do more, but they already do a lot of this work. So we would work together.
So you're already doing this now?
We don't do urgent assessments. So right now we schedule people for admission to our hospital. We have 3 levels of care. We have inpatient, residential, and outpatient, but we don't have, and because there's never been an economic model to do these urgent assessments, even though we kind of informally do them now and then, but we haven't had a setup to create 6 slots a week.
So if you set up this system, the benefit to a New Canaan resident will be that they don't have to pay to go through.
And they don't have to wait.
And they don't have to wait. What if you don't get enough demand? What happens in that case?
I think then we scale down and we'd have to kind of work it out. We're not going to take the town's money if there's nobody comes. Seems unlikely, but you never know, right? And so I think we'll have to measure these things and report them back.
I think the first selectman and Amy said the same thing at the same time, which is if it if it's used, then it's needed.
Right.
We just proved the point.
We'll figure it out.
No, we'll figure it out.
I wish
Yeah,
I ever
I think-
overestimated the need. I've always underestimated it. So.
Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, you just did kind of in our chance to, we had a chance to talk about it earlier, and Bethany gave us some great information, and I personally don't see a better use of ARPA funds than to try to put the seed money in place to address this critical need. And, you know, if it, I don't know how to view it as a roaring success, but I mean, I cannot imagine the level of comfort that will give to people in a crisis situation to know that there is a place, and we're so lucky to have such a professional organization in town that can capitalize on their basic capital assets and their human assets to help people move through such a difficult time in a more rapid and effective way. I think it's an amazing
It's a brilliant idea.
opportunity. And look at, if it's just needed so much, then we figure out how to address the need, because it's really needed then if it's needed that much.
I personally think, I rarely inject my personal opinion, but it's a brilliant idea.
No.
And I will compliment the ARPA process again, because what we did was we took a thoughtful process over a year. And this was probably not on the list when the ARPA monies dropped in our lap a year, right?
But I will say that the
You know, so
groundwork had
just-
been
that
done
was a very good process.
by the community foundation. Lauren and her had created a process even
right.
prior to COVID.
Yeah.
But
But it surfaced through here. Yeah, that's
that
right.
surfaced
Perfect. Now, I think it's great. Okay. I'd like to vote on them separately. So let's just, unless there's any other discussion. We need to think, Tucker. I think we need to take a motion. Vote. Yeah, okay, okay. So a motion to approve the Silver Hill Hospital Behavioral Health Assessment Service for $250,000.
I'll move.
Judy, okay, Amy was, Amy motion and Judy second? Yeah, okay. All in favor? Okay. Opposed, none? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to Russ, you're on for, for the Waveney Life Care.
And
Thank you.
Leo's
Oh,
chairman.
Leo, sorry, I'm sorry.
Come up in case there's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Russ
Okay.
is gonna do it.
Thanks, Leo.
Tucker, you're able to load the slides for us, please?
I need a secretary.
Thanks very much. Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Finance. For the record, my name is Russ Barksdale. I'm President and CEO of Waveney Life Care Network and all of its subsidiary corporations, which includes a visiting nurse and hospice of Fairfield County. I hold my master's degree in public and healthcare administration. I'm a fellow in American College of Healthcare Executives. I'm proud to be joined by my chairman, Leo Carl, who's there with you today. I thank you for the invitation extended to Waveney to present one of its 4 American Rescue Plan Act applications to you this evening. In the interest of time and having presented to both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finances Subcommittee, I'll be presenting a brief overview to allow time for any questions. I believe I speak for both Andrew and I in expressing our delight to see healthcare issues now getting their opportunity to be supported. Waveney has a 40-year history and visiting nurse, a 100-year history in serving the healthcare needs of our community. Our providers have a front row seat in caring for well over 600 local residents per day as we continue to monitor healthcare trends and the care needs of those we serve. Sadly, many direct caregivers, physicians, and nurses alike have left the profession altogether due to stress and burnout, while others have chosen alternative work arrangements. Next slide, please. As business leaders, you certainly appreciate the financial and clinical quality impact of supply and demand, the reduction of caregivers for an aging constituency, the desire to have in time quality access to care rather than an extended delay for a medical office visit or risk entry into what could be a highly infectious healthcare setting. It was those efforts and others, coupled with the ease and timeliness of access, that catapulted telehealth into the limelight and showed payers, including Medicare, that would be a cost-effective solution to enhance wellness, improved access, and quality health monitoring, all components of a highly valued healthcare model. Telemedicine provides high definition health screening, vital sign reporting, and provides high quality resolutions as stethoscope sounds can be amplified, wound resolutions magnified, and electronic medical records accessed in real time. In short, it provides physicians and practitioners with timely data to increase their productivity and accuracy in diagnosis and treatment. Next slide, please. There are dozens of studies that itemize the benefits of telemedicine. We've listed a few, but I'll highlight merely 3. Telemedicine reduces healthcare service costs for Duquesne residents, especially those living on a fixed income. Telemedicine reduces unnecessary non-urgent emergency room visits and eliminates expensive emergent transportation expenses. Telemedicine can effectively monitor and diagnose long COVID symptoms, as well as other health chronic comorbidities, such as congestive heart failure, high blood pressure, stroke risk, and other respiratory and circulatory issues. In the appendix provided, you will see New Canaan's actual data from March of 2020 to March 24th of 2022. While the most vulnerable residents during the first wave were in fact New Canaan's senior population, that quickly changed to include other age cohorts during the second and subsequent waves. 1,351 New Canaan residents between the ages of 40 and 79 were confirmed to have been stricken with the SARS virus. And as of March 24th, almost 1 in 5 New Canaan residents had reported testing positive. Most research indicates that with approximately 40% of infected residents being asymptomatic and not testing, this number is certainly underreported. Why does this matter? COVID-19 is a multi-system disease, and long COVID or post-COVID affects 10 to 30% of those afflicted 12 weeks or longer after their acute infection period. That equates to roughly 135 to 405 New Canaan residents who will or currently have system issues related to the infection. That number will undoubtedly continue to grow as each wave emerges. Next slide, please. Waveney Life Care is a preferred provider of all the major acute care providers in our region. While New Canaan residents utilize all of these regional providers, similar to any healthcare information exchange, once the client assigns a physician or specialist, that information will be HIPAA compliant and only accessible to the provider assigned by the client. Next slide. Every resident in New Canaan may opt into telemedicine. They may choose to because of pre-existing conditions, the special needs of a child, or their existing patients and senior residents being cared for in New Canaan. And as Andrew and I have discussed on many occasions, this program has the ability to add additional providers related to behavioral health issues. Next slide, please. With this New Canaan specific backdrop, what would be a conservative demand analysis in year 1? Assuming a 20% capture rate for long COVID residents equates up to 81 enrollees. New Canaan also has a significant senior population and a growing 55 and older constituency. Extrapolating 2 or more chronic ailments and comorbidities adds another 369 clientele. Telemedicine has already been proven to assist in the care management of special needs children and New Canaan residents who have been recently discharged home, thereby preventing unnecessary hospital readmissions. Next slide, please. A grant in telemedicine today will give New Canaan a tremendous advantage in managing any future public health crisis by providing a daily tracking and disease management program with a proven record to enhance quality of life. Next slide, please. This shows the actual at-home device that is wireless and may be used through your cell provider or internet. Waveney's system has been named the best remote patient monitoring system for 3 consecutive years, reflective of its open architecture, and ability to transition as newly created diagnostic tools are developed. Next slide, please. The request for funds pays for capital investments in year one. The model becomes virtually financially self-sufficient in years 2 and beyond. So it is truly a seed capital investment that will continue to reap community health benefits for years to come. This is a true public-private partnership. Next slide, please. If the request for fund is approved today, Waveney Life Care has committed to matching the town of New Canaan's ARPA allocation. Next slide. The combined funds will operationalize the expansion of the program to include the required staff to install and monitor the system in each device. Next slide, please. As the program hits a critical mass, units will begin reaching levels of payer reimbursement necessary to support the operation in years 2 and beyond. Next slide, please. The well-publicized Connecticut plan of the American Rescue Plan Act acknowledges that the pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on Connecticut's most vulnerable residents, and priority should be given to improving the speed and quality with which we can monitor and analyze public health risk and respond to them. Next slide, please. The average New Canaan resident probably sees a physician 2 to 4 times per year for 15 to 20 minutes each visit. Telemedicine has the capability to see a New Canaan resident the other 360 plus days per year to monitor changes in behavior and their health, as well as their health risk. In conclusion, telemedicine meets several priority consideration criteria established for ARPA funding. The applicant has a history of providing high quality, 5-star rated care, which also includes telemedicine today. COVID variants will continue to develop over time and create altering long COVID symptoms for a growing percentage of our residents. Telemedicine has been proven to provide excellent quality and timely care and monitoring, thereby preventing unnecessary emergency room visits and hospitalizations. New Canaan has a significant and growing population over the age of 55 with varying degrees of health risk. Waveney Life Care is in a unique position of being totally independent of any outside healthcare organization. Thus, this telemedicine network is truly patient-centered. The program is cost-effective and sustainable after the initial seed funding and scalable based upon growing demand. And finally, insurance-based surveys reflect an increased acceptance and preference for telehealth programs. We thank you again. We thank the board for the opportunity to present to you today, and I'm happy to answer or address any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Russ. Questions? You might want to go off sharing so we can see anyone who's up on online. Questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Victor.
So do you have to get this hardware installed in your home in order to participate in the telehealth program?
Yes, if you're interested in participating, we would deliver one of our nurses the kit, the telemedicine kit to your home and show you how to use it and connect it. So you would be connected. We then ask you to tell us which physician that you would want the information to be sent to. And we would speak with that physician to see what devices and what vital signs that physician would like to monitor.
So you couldn't just call on your cell phone and get on like a Zoom call on your cell phone and use that as a way to communicate with a physician?
Absolutely. So there are different ways, and we talked about behavioral health. If it is a site consult, then yes, there are ways to use telehealth right now, which is nothing more than how we're communicating today via Zoom. What we're talking about and what we've been utilizing is telemedicine, where all of your vital signs will actually be up on screen, and the doctor will be able to listen to your heart and lungs, will be able to determine what your blood pressure is, what your pulse ox rate is, and any other vital signs that we can provide to them. One being an example for wound care. We have a wound wand that attaches to our computer system, and the doctor can monitor the wound and the progression of the heal.
So if I can, Russ, it's Leo, I'm just going to chime in a little, a story background on this, and then maybe add a little more flavor to this comment. But basically, this is Waveney's asking for an investment in a new, yes, it's new technology, but telemedicine has been proven through the pandemic. It's kind of had a real world live test case where it's been proven out. And the fact that Medicare has come out and is now reimbursing for telehealth visits, we think that moving forward, more private insurance will start paying for it. For the town of New Canaan, Waveney Life Care Network, everyone knows, is a building at the bottom of Farm Road at 3 Farm Road, the care center in the village there. And we have the inn up at Ono. But what a lot of people don't know is, as Russ alluded to, there's over 500 residents that we care for in their own homes and in other facilities around Lower Fairfield County. Waveney's been using and Visiting Nurse, which we merged into us a year ago, has been using telehealth as a way to make the nursing staff more flexible. A registered nurse can't get around to all those homes on a regular basis. So by having a telehealth connection to those homes that have a need, it's been proven really effective. So research has been done to build out a backbone for a telemedicine program that we think we could deliver hyper local to the town of New Canaan, specifically to open it up to more residents than just Waveney's current patients. And residents who would like to participate can have a kit delivered to them. Because of security and starting out, they decided to use a tablet and specific equipment. Maybe down the road, people could use their own computer and just use equipment tied in, but it's all done by Bluetooth. Someone doesn't have to sit at a keyboard and enter what was my blood pressure, what was my heart rate. It's just done seamlessly. So if a user gets in the habit of getting up in the morning, standing on a scale, putting up blood pressure cuff on, putting in pulse ox meter on their finger, the stats are registered and go into this software. And at the command center where a nurse would be stationed, all of the registered users of the telemedicine network are on a grid. There's basically a spreadsheet. And the system learns what their average running statistics are. One person's blood pressure may be different than another. So the system learns what each individual user's standing normal stats are. And if anything gets out of range, plus or minus, the box turns red. So all of a sudden she's alerted, or whoever's on the desk is alerted that there's an issue with this particular resident, and that can trigger an outreach. So Waveney staff would be monitoring this on an ongoing basis, but each individual user would have the ability to tie in their own personal physician, whether they have a local doctor themselves or a healthcare provider. It could go to a specialist if they're seeing someone. The advantage Waveney has, like Russ said, we're agnostic. It's like Switzerland. We're not part of any one network. So if you have a heart specialist that's tied to Greenwich Hospital or Stanford Hospital, but you see someone else who's tied to another network, you can still use the same data. And
I think it's great. This is clearly coming. I mean, I have a doctor who monitors my health through my Apple Watch that goes up through the Hartford Healthcare website. It connects in. So when I go in to see the doctor, he's already got all my pulse, all of that information. So, you know, and this, probably the technology will change quickly and all that, but I understand why, you know,
it will morph over time. But the other thing that's important to realize is as a healthcare network and a nonprofit, Waveney has served the town and residents for over 40 years now. And the reality is a lot of residents' life expectancy has been much longer than was originally anticipated. And so right now, Waveney provides about $4.5 million of charity care a year, unreimbursed care, where people have outlived their life savings or their assets. They're still being cared for. Waveney's not kicking them out. So as a as a board that's looking forward, we're trying to find viable business models that'll help sustain that nonprofit network. And we think this is one investment that we need to make today that hopefully, if the trends continue, this may prove into a business model that helps add revenue to the network down the road, that helps cover some of that charity care. Because if these telemedicine visits ultimately end up being reimbursable, it's a way to provide another level of service to the community outside of the confines of the physical footprint. So
So,
it-
oh, go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead, Jean.
Is it reimbursable at all now? 'Cause
right now,
I
the
thought
hardware
we
is
were
not
doing-
reimbursable. And so it's,
Yeah.
which comes first, the chicken or the egg? I think and Russ can chime in on this, but I think we're asking for this initial seed investment because you have to have it up and running before the actual visit can happen to trigger a reimbursable event. So we think we can grow into this. We think that it's expandable and scalable. Some users of this would be full-time users. They'd want to get a kit and they'd be participating every day. Others would get a kit when they come home from post-op surgery, and maybe they need it for 30 days or 60 days, and then they would turn it back in and we'd repurpose it. So we suspect that part of the users will be long-termers and others will be short-termers. You could have, my daughter had knee surgery and was, monitored, but the fact that someone could be monitored, hospital are discharging people much sooner than ever before. So sometimes they're going home with potential emergent health issues that no one's monitoring. If they had this equipment and they were able to be monitored, that's another way of getting, flagging someone for help before they might be too late or might otherwise get it. So.
Leo, I would just add to that. If you look at our year 2 projections, you'll see that Medicare Part B does pay, but we would not be charging anyone in the town of New Canaan for monitoring. The charge to Part B would occur only if a physician gets involved, a nurse practitioner gets involved to contact the resident and do an actual physical. So the monitoring as part of this investment to the town, and that's why it's New Canaan specific, would go towards that and getting the technology and the monitoring into effect. We'll get to a critical mass, if you will, of volume, and then it will be cost effective in year 2. And we're hoping to, once we have that platform, to open it up to other towns. But again, they want to have the same benefit. And to Leo's point, and I know the hour is long and we've gone through a lot of presentations, but to Leo's point, we get contacted a lot from people that live in the town that have outlived, seniors that have outlived their retirement and their savings, and we've been able to through our charity care take them as a direct referral and take care of their healthcare needs. This gives us another tool in our toolbox, if you will, to be able to try to keep people home and keep them independent as long as possible.
So I have a question. First of all, Russ, we don't start collecting overtime until after 11, so we're fine. I have a quick question. If I understand the great idea, by the way, another great idea. This is a one-time investment for almost called the back office infrastructure.
The backbone of
the network. And is that scalable to, you said we have about 500 people going on and out. What would what does that investment get us in terms of scale?
Yeah.
Any idea? 2,000?
Yeah, in terms of scale, I think if you look at the one slide when we estimated what the year 1 volume would be, the 400,000, you're looking at about 300 residents in the town of New Canaan. When you look at year 2, when we start talking of Medicare Part B, that would then walk out to Darien, Wilton, and things of that nature, and we would expand our footprint at that point. But as a grant for ARPA for specific New Canaan residents, that's where we'd be looking to spend the money in year 1.
There's a significant investment you have the investment in the hardware that goes into each home, and then you have a networked platform, software, and the staffing. I mean, in order to do this, you need an RN trained at telemedicine to be manning it.
Or the kits are not part of the 400, or they are?
No, they are essentially in the initial investment, the initial Kits.
The initial rollout is the kits and the infrastructure, the back office.
That is correct. That's a total cash outlay, including capital. Yes, sir.
And so I have a quick question. It sounds, as Todd said, it sounds like a really good idea. So applause for bringing this forward. But for many of us on this committee have had a little bit of skittishness about outright purchasing items of technology, because you never know if you're putting your money on, VHS or Betamax, right? And how that's all going to work out. And what's more is sometimes there's an issue to be analyzed about whether or not an outright purchase versus a lease, if there's a market to lease some of this equipment, might make some sense. So I'm wondering if you could maybe speak to those 2 points.
Sure, that's an excellent point. I think what we have found in the 3+ years we've been doing this, the technology advances every 3 to 4 months. So the cost of the equipment is not the blood pressure that is Bluetooth connected or the pulse ox. Absolutely. Every 6 months, that new technology is going to come in and replace. That is a very, very low cost. The real cost of the system is the monitoring system that goes into place, that networks, that does the algorithms, and that keeps getting investment. And that's not something that you can lease.
Okay.
That's an excellent question, though.
Any other?
I'll give you just one prime example, and I'm sorry if I spoke over somebody. The wireless stethoscopes that are used, that were used 2 years ago, the advancement in wireless stethoscopes right now for a physician to listen to your heart sounds and breath sounds, and to be able to magnify that, it's not Moore's law, but every 4 to 6 months, that technology is getting great. But that wireless stethoscope is really not the capital expense.
There's also staffing though, isn't there, as part of this?
Yes,
It looks like that.
Absolutely.
that's a
Yeah,
big part of it
Yeah.
to start with.
It's just the one nurse that monitors this? What about the people who deliver and go to the homes and?
That's true.
No, so when you look at the budget, that's another great question. You have a nurse that is looking at the monitor, and the monitor's algorithm is then lighting up and saying that we have an issue. At that point in time, if it is something that requires, then you have a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant who is on call at that point, and they are immediately on the system. So when you look at those operating costs, that is for the 24/7, 365 monitoring system, plus people being on call for an urgent situation, or not an urgent, but something that's a little abnormal that needs to be looked at.
So Russ, I think one of Judy's
Yeah.
question was more, how does the equipment get to the home? And I think that's part of, we have, how many employees are in home care, Russ, now? 400?
Yeah, we have almost 200 employees in home care, and they would be on a rotation schedule of to go to Mrs. Smith's house and to get her set up and to get the system wired and connected. So those expenses already exist.
We would just use the existing labor network to do
Exactly.
deliveries and setups.
My only other question is, how do you anticipate making this sustainable without these funds going forward? I mean, is this going to be another?
Yeah, the sustainability of it is the Medicare Part B billing system that is built in. So when you look into the year 2 financial analysis, you'll see that the significant ongoing is being able to build those for those services.
And private pay.
And hopefully,
So, right?
hopefully private pay will get on. I mean, one of the things that came up when Andrew Gerber was up here talking was, how does it get funded? I think probably all of us are going to have to be putting on our lobbying hats, because if the insurance industry that we all pay a ton of money into doesn't start recognizing that there's things like behavioral health assessments, which could cut down on a lot of expenses if they would fund paying for that,
That's right.
and things like telemedicine that can cut down on emergency room visits and other visits. It's a huge amount of savings that's potential, but you have to convince them that those are things that they should be investing in reimbursement. Because I think the tendency is, anytime you bring up pay for services, nobody wants to start paying for something new, but it's proving out that paying for something new that's less expensive upfront saves a lot of money down the road, and we just got to get there. I think it will happen over
Medicare
time.
paying for it? But you said Part B,
Yeah.
but that's the Medicare. What about
is-
private insurance? Is or is not mostly?
There is private insurance, some that do pay for it. The difference between what we're offering, this is New Canaan specific, our proposal. But if, once we get the framework and infrastructure in place, right now in the telemedicine programs that we have patients that come off of Part A under our treatment for home care who ask us, can we pay for this to have as a monthly service? And what Leo is referring to, if we were going to Wilton or Darien or something, a town in our area, and residents wanted to keep this service, then we would come up with something like a per member per month rate to be connected and constantly monitoring their vital signs. So that would be the private pay business and revenue. Again, once we get this structure up and operational and be able to take on this initial set of volumes, then we feel comfortable with year 2 and on.
We'll need to move on unless there are any other questions. Anybody? Chris, you're good? Amy, anybody on the line? Okay. So a motion to approve, this is support of the Waverly Life Care Network Telemedicine Initiative for $400,000. Motion, please.
Moved.
Victor, second.
Second.
I think Amy got you, Neil.
Doesn't matter.
Got her hand up faster than anybody.
Passed
All
on.
right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? So moved. All right,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Leo.
everyone.
Russ, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks for doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Tiger, up over to you.
All right, well, thank you very much. So we'll give you an update on our sewer usage fees for the past year and for the past 3 years. First, I'd like to thank Bob Mantilia. He's been bird dogging this work and this basically this issue, or what we've been doing for the past 3 years, very well. He's kept track of every single invoice, where we stand, where we are, and where we should be headed. So a big thank you to Bob. So this year we put out 2,621 invoices. The interesting thing is that as of this year, as of March 31, we only have 83 accounts that are delinquent. In the same periods during the past 2 years, we had 143 and 154 respectively. So we're doing better each year. And as far as how many are delinquent from prior years, meaning the first year and the second year of institution, we only have 3. So we're actually able to basically recoup every single fee that we're invoicing for, and we only see that trend should increase and get better over time. So if you remember, we started off, we were originally trying to stay with 3 residential tertiles, to be honest, 3 residential categories. We had to go to 4. We went to 4. We're now looking to try to compress that down based upon what we consider to be water usage for each of the higher resident, or R3 and R4. So we would like to combine R3 and R4 into one category, and then just have 3 categories moving forward for this year. We would look to keep the commercial situation, those categories at a stasis point. Those categories seem to be working quite well. So we don't look at any change at that point in time. Overall, as far as we look at the budget, and what we need to, what we need the fees for, we're looking at the fact that the budget overall is flat. Now, while the sewer department itself went up by about 3.7%, we paid off the bond, that was for building the plant or renovating the plant. So that principal goes away. We have a little bit of interest left to go for the year, but the principal payment of $54,000 goes away. So we're looking at overall, with some additional properties coming online, the View, certain ones at Canaan Parish, other properties that have come online, with those coming online and the fact that we're relatively flat, we would like to see keeping this fee flat for this year for both residential and commercial. So while we'll go down to a 3 sectional thing on residential, we'll keep all the rates flat at that point in time. The only thing that we were looking at changing this year is actually the septic fee. So that's for people that utilize the facility, but have septic tanks or septic holding tanks, septic fields, what have you. We instituted that fee in 2009 at $100 per 1,000 gallons. We haven't changed that fee in the past 13 years. It's remained flat. We did an analysis, and our neighboring towns are 95, 100. If we went to $105 per 1,000, we would be the highest in our region, but we don't feel that it would be detrimental to us as far as any fees that we would be getting, any revenues that would be coming in, and it wouldn't necessarily be a hardship to the resident. your average tank is about 500 gallons, we'd be looking at a $2.50 increase when they're pumping out their tank that year or twice a year at $5 a total increase. So given the fact that we haven't made an increase in 14 years, we're asking for 5% change, $100 to 105. It equates to about 0.384% annually over that 14-year period. So that's about the only change that we're looking to do at present, apart from compressing those two categories. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but we'll put together the fee memo that we had for you for next month as far as the entire analysis, where we're going to stand. But today I just wanted to gather some input, and then next month we'll give it to you, and then we look for a vote, public hearing and a vote.
Just to remind everybody of the process, this was an informational for us. This is to get ready for a public hearing and then a final letter, as Tiger said, outline these proposals and the numbers, and then we'll vote on that. So that'll be May, Tucker. I think it's May, right? Yeah. So any other questions or things that we need clarity at this point for Tiger for tonight, but also for May? Anyone on maybe stop sharing just so I can see the.
That's
Collapsing 4 into 3 costs us about $30,400. So that's.
Any other questions? Maria, Tom, anybody? Bob?
All good.
That was an easy one, Tiger.
That was an easy one. Thank you very much.
Bob. Okay, Ann and Josh, please. With the financial update, and again, discuss the mill rate. You should have a printout while they're coming up here. There was a print. Here it is. Yeah, everyone should have this copy of the analysis with a mill rate set of options. Is this on their tablets?
Yes,
for
it is.
Tom?
Yeah.
Okay. So Bob and Tom and Amy.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with we'll just go through the financial update to see where we are.
Sure. So let me just share on the screen. Okay. So in front of you, you have the financials for the period ending March 31st, 2020, which puts us at 2022, sorry, which puts us at 75% of the way through the year. And keeping that in mind, starting off with the revenues, tax collections are currently at 101% of the budgeted revenues, which is 1.4 million over the budget at 141.6 million. The building permits are at 108%, which is 180,000 over last year and just 75,000 over what was budgeted. Conveyance fees are at 157,000, which is
157%.
sorry, 157%, which is
I
160,000.
need a remote monitor if it's $157,000.
We knew what you meant, don't worry.
Which is 160,000 less than last year, but 630 over what we had budgeted for this year. Parking is still lagging. It's only at 58%, which is up though 490,000 from last year, which was basically zero. So overall revenues total is 100.4%.
Just on the parking, what are you projecting?
So it's
Keep in mind, we changed the timing of when we're going to bill permits for June. So it's all going to go into the next fiscal year. We used to get part of it in one fiscal year.
right. So parking, I believe, is at 487 now. 550 maybe.
It's your snapback by July.
So as of March, we've collected 100% of our projected revenues.
Yes.
Are you going to give me your best estimate in terms of what you think we're going to
End up with.
Well, I think beyond the 100%, there will likely be 1.5 to 2 million from tax collects, probably 225,000 for building permits,
Okay.
around 500,000 for conveyance fees, and then, of course, it's down the 400,000 from parking. So we're looking at, I guess that's around, 2 million.
About 2 million to the good.
Yeah,
We should be 2 million in excess. Excellent.
just on the
Okay.
revenue side,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
And we're still just, the excess cost, we're still waiting for the balance of that. That's another 300,000 as well.
Okay.
And onto the revenue side, things are
On the expense.
expense side, sorry. It's late already.
Yeah.
We're pretty much on target. There's nothing that's kind of jumping out of the ordinary. We're at 64% overall. Last year at this time, we were at 65% of total expense percentage, 65.5. So we're 1.6% better than we were doing last year. And we're, in order to get a kind of a better sense of where we think this number is going to end up, we're kind of asking the departments to kind of weigh in on their projections for the rest of the year, which is really only 3 more periods, I believe.
We're running 2 million better, lower, less than last year. Interesting.
That's,
Okay.
I don't get that.
It's good.
Mm.
Well, those are all the
Is that
categories.
because of,
Debt service was 400.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of timing issues, and that's where
Oh,
I'm
is that
hoping
what
by
it
next week,
is?
I'm gonna have a budget
Okay.
performance report sent out to all the departments.
Mm.
And that's where I'm gonna ask them to say, for the rest of the year, outside of the stuff we know, the debt service things that need to go in,
Mhm.
and salary related, because we can populate that.
Mhm.
For the next 2.5 months, what do you actually realistically think you're gonna spend?
Okay.
Obviously, Tiger's department would be the biggest one, and his would be the unknowns that pop up in that time frame. But we know the rest of what should happen, utilities, things like that.
Right.
Give or take a little bit with the way utilities are going. So we're hoping within the next 2 weeks, I'll have a better
Okay.
stance of where we think the end of the year expenses will be.
Right now, you're thinking they'll be probably no worse than on budget
Right. Oh, definitely not.
and likely to the good somewhere. So this is always for Calm's benefit, maybe a little bit of Victor. So we had put aside 5 million from our general fund, right? But we're going to probably pay ourselves back 3, right? You just heard we're two to the good on revenue and likely, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Josh, 1 million.
Probably 2.5 to the good in revenue possibly, and
Right.
then the 500 or.
So we could be about 3 to the good
3 between
combined.
both, yes, net.
So net will not spend 5, we'll spend 2 of that we put aside. Now, we can't count on that every year, but that looks like we've done it 4 years in a row, but I'm not saying it'll happen again. But that's great. Okay, got it. Well, we got lucky with the conveyance. I'm not sure we're gonna be so lucky
yeah. that's
next year
markets
with
and
houses
stuff.
selling. Yeah, I mean,
And a big chunk of the revenue, of the expense occurs for the Board of Ed at the end of the year, right? Because they pay out their summer.
Their balloon payment gets
Yeah,
paid
the
out
balloon
at the very
payments
end.
get paid. So there's a big catch up in June.
still apples to apples. That happens every year.
That's
We're
right.
still,
You look
we
at it
know
year to
that's
year.
coming.
Yeah.
That's why it's 64% at the 75%
Last
mark.
year,
Right.
on a basis, we were 1.4 million to the good.
Yeah, on an expense?
I think so, yeah.
I don't
We
remember
had
that.
2
I
million
remember we
better
were-
revenue and 1.4 million better on
I don't remember why.
expense.
Why? You're right. I think you're
Because we're
right.
always underspent.
Yeah, but this
Yeah,
is,
well,
that's a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a
Yeah.
lot. Oh, you mean overall at the end of the year?
Overall,
That's true. Yes, of course.
Well,
Yes,
that's
I'm
what I
sorry.
tried- Not having the history on that to
Yeah.
try and get ahead of it
Yes.
with the forecast
Yeah,
in the next
okay.
So
2
if you're
weeks.
saying,
to get ahead of that.
500,000 on the expense side, that seems low.
We've had a couple of, we did go for some transfers for contingency already because we had some items between utilities. We had some custodial ones with different buildings. We had 220 coming on and things like that, where we have expenditures coming in. Although we may have revenues coming for some of these things, we can't net them in the expense side. So we have to find the savings that we've been finding savings to use that, and we use some of the contingency already that we didn't use last year because of those expenditures coming in.
So we could have about a $3 million surplus, which is what we
Right, and that's kind of.
budgeted, we give back to the taxpayers. So that's the point. Okay. All right, good. Very good update. Anything else? Any questions on that, Bob or Tom or Amy? Nope, okay. Okay. Again, tonight, discussion of the mill rate. I think this is to really get it on everyone's mind wrapped around this as we think through what we want to do, where we'll end up. You just answered some of that. That analysis you just discussed, you'll know in about 2 weeks, will be really relevant in May when we have this conversation. So we really have a good feel for where we think we'll be. But want to step us through this?
So this model that you see is it just breaks down the components of the budget up top in just different categories, but it's the Board of Ed and on our budget. And that what the net we're saying is raised to be taxation as it stands right now. The highlighted, the portion on the bottom is the portion to see what do you actually want to use as a fund, use of fund balance. So the highlighted part is where we stand right now. Above it is lowering the use of the fund balance, and below it is increasing the use of the fund balance. And based on where we think the end of this year would be, our unassigned would be close to about 24.4 million is where our unassigned would be based on giving back 3 million. So that'll give you an indication there to say, okay, we're at the 5 million right now. Are we going up or down? And then it gives you the percentage and the mill rate increase either way. On the right-hand side, the column, the reserve for uncollectible, is the amount that we're saying is left to be collected. As you know, we budget 98.5, but we're in the 99.5% range of collection rate. So to give you some clarity on that, but so this will give you an idea of, are you in the right ballpark that you want to use your fund balance on?
Again, another way to look at that, just sorry, Amy, just real quickly for everybody. I think maybe make sure I'm saying this right. Another way to look at what you just said is that, let's just use the 5 million that's highlighted here. We would likely pay ourselves back 2 of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the net is, worst case 3, assuming everything else comes in, the revenues come in. This is our cushion for not great conveyance fee. We could be over budgeted there, or some expense that we don't know that we could be under budgeted for. So, okay. Sorry, Amy, what was your question?
Yeah, no, hey, and this is always the perpetual, making sure we have a handle on, what our unassigned general fund balance will be after we kind of sort of assign this money. So just when we talk about this next month, and I know everyone's just trying to get it tighter, when we can talk about the unassigned balance, if we just really, kind of have that number out so we know what we're talking about. And my question to you, and I'm sorry, I should know this, but I forget, the support that we give to the health insurance funds in terms of the quarter coverage, is that considered assigned or unassigned?
Assigned. So at the end, at the end of last year, we had just over $5 million assigned.
Okay.
5.2 and change was the amount for the fund balance, balancing the budget for 22. And we had 1.5, I think 1.6 for the corridor for the health insurance. And then we had small reserve for compensated balances and heart and hypertension. Okay. So in total, 7 million.
So just for those of us who are a little slow on the uptake, which is me. So when we do it, we talk about this next month. If we could have just a real quick summary, this is our fund balance. This is what's assigned to these different obligations, and then we'll know, we'll know we're going to get pretty close to, we're going to get 3 million back. So we'll be able to figure that in. So we'll just be really cognizant of where our fund balance, our flexible fund balance stands.
Okay.
I understand what you're looking for. So there's a total fund balance. Part of it is assigned, part of it is unassigned. A big part is unassigned. Within the assigned, it would be good to have just what those items are too.
Yeah, just so everybody, when everyone looks at the fund balance, they get confused. Oh, we have so much money. And then like, well, we do have so much money. This part is specifically assigned. And then we can discuss these other things that are, just kind of policy, our 10% reserve for expenses, for the budget and stuff like that. So just when people look at the total size of the balance, that we really understand why we have it like that, and where it's formally assigned and where it's informally assigned.
Yeah, we can have that together.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so then next month, we will we'll go through the details and then come to a conclusion and vote on a mill rate. Right now, what's on the table is a 1.49% increase, which is, pretty small. But we'll debate it then. Any other questions as we need to get prepared for that discussion in May? Or are we good? Chris, you good? Amy, Tim, okay, all right. Excellent, thank you, good work on that. And review, any approvals?
There is several to review. I don't know if you just want to do that first. It's on your tablet.
Yep.
It's a total of $122,969.22. They're mostly just housekeeping and
Did anyone have any questions on those that we don't need to approve those, but they just need to be reviewed? Anything you want to call out?
none of these, no, not really.
Okay, all right.
And there is one to approve, which is a capital transfer between 3 projects in fire capital, just moving some excess money into a project for the fire station alert system for $12,400.
Where is that?
That's, it should be on, it's in its own file titled for approval. It's
Oh,
separate from the for
separate,
review ones,
okay.
yeah.
It's just, it's 12,000.
12,400. Yep.
400. Any questions on that one? Any questions? If none, I just need a motion to approve the 12,400 transfer.
So move.
Motion to approve.
Yep. Thank you, Maria. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Anything else from you two for tonight? Okay, well, we have a busy May meeting.
You also have a meeting at the end of the month, April meeting.
Yes,
Oh,
right.
Right, yeah. Should we schedule something next week just because? I mean, just, should we meet something next week? Should we just put something on the calendar? So we can meet every week? Poor Ann, she came here, she didn't want to be here 20 nights a month. Now look at her.
Don't want to let her down, right?
We met every week last August.
Oh, I remember my other vacation I spent on Zoom calls. Okay, and if there's nothing else, thank you, everybody. Motion to adjourn? A second? Neil, all in favor? Aye, opposed, none? Thank you all. Thanks, everyone on the line. Appreciate you hanging on there. Thank you. Good meeting.